Modern, secular, and progressive advocates have spent generations now hammering home this idea that the past is inferior to the present as well as what we can expect from the future. And since tradition is oriented towards the past, it too must be inferior. Something like that logic has dominated the sensibilities of the church for a while now, especially as we attempt to relate the faith to the youth. So we'll take a superficial look at what kids are interested in today, and we'll say let's include more of that in church culture to make it more relevant and more accessible to the youth. And after doing this for some 60 odd years now, the only trend we've been able to detect has been population decline, and it only seems to be compounded with each successive generation. But there does seem to be renewal and growth taking place in more traditionally oriented parishes like the one that I attend, which only offers the extraordinary form or the traditional Latin Mass. And when I tell people that, they almost always react by expressing sympathy for my kids. They assume that I'm dragging my kids off to some stuffy and rigid and closed-minded parish community. But they're always surprised when I tell them this story, which is about a month after we had been attending the Extraordinary Form just to find out what it was all about and to explore if maybe it was a better fit for our religious needs and our spiritual needs. I asked the kids, who ranged from 10 years and younger at the time, if they wanted to continue going to the Latin Mass or if they wanted to go back to our old parish, which only offered the Ordinary Form. And I was reluctant to offer this opportunity for them because I wanted to keep going to the Extraordinary Form, and I assumed that a few of them, if not all of them, would want to go back to our old parish. And to my surprise, they enthusiastically voted to keep going to the Latin Mass. And if I recall it accurately, they triumphantly cheered and exclaimed their preference with fists in the air. When I tell people that story, they usually react in strange ways. They either think that I'm lying or they have some sort of a bad disc moment where you can tell that their brain is glitching a little bit and until they start to retreat away back to other corners of the world where things make sense to them. Modern life seems to be fairly cleanly divided between work and leisure, or maybe work and play is a more familiar way of describing it. Work is what we do because we have to. It's our obligations and commitments. It's a necessary evil. Play is what we do because we want to do it. And for the most part, this dimension of life is characterized by what amuses or entertains us, which we have more access to now than we have ever had in all of human history. It seems that virtually everybody has their own curated library of digital music, their own algorithmically determined library of video on demand, their favorite restaurants, and of course their favorite apps and games which characterize their digital lifestyle. And for anything of that nature that we haven't discovered yet, we find that it's already pre-rated for us by the best experts out there so that we don't waste any time with music, movies, apps, or games that won't maximize our amusement. And nobody is more dialed into these expressions of popular culture than the youth. For one, all of our promotional media is targeted at them because they have buying power and they will be less shrewd in scrutinizing the stuff that people are trying to sell to them. So they're seen as an easy target. And unfortunately, popular culture is an industrial business, and they've been able to maximize their profits by drawing from the wisdom of industrial manufacturers who have been able to ensure that consumers continue to buy their products even when we don't need them through the concept of planned obsolescence. This was a concept developed by General Motors, who decided to redesign their cars every year even though they didn't need to, in the hopes that this would attract consumers to buy the latest one even though they didn't need it, even though their existing one was perfectly fine and should last them several more years. Trends in popular culture are designed to do the exact same thing. Just when we feel like we've caught up with the latest in fashion or music, it all gets pulled out from under us arbitrarily to compel us to go back to the stores to buy more and keep up with the latest trends. This should be our first indication that popular culture is not real culture, and why we shouldn't draw inspiration from it when we develop our liturgical worship. But concern for the youth is so often present in our rationales for why we should shift away from a reverent and traditional religious faith to one that is expressed more in terms of amusement and entertainment. Back in the 1960s, modernist liturgical activists like the now disgraced Archbishop Weakland sat on musical councils and boards where they promoted these ideas that we should target the youth with the choice of music that is meaningful to persons of this age level. And so, to make a long story short, at the hands of activists like Weekland, Sunday worship and liturgy started to shift away from tradition towards this desire to be more relevant and amusing. And the apparent wisdom in this isn't hard to grasp. People only work because they have to. What people really want is to be entertained and amused. So let's try to make the liturgy more entertaining and amusing. But the first obvious problem with this instinct is that no local church will ever be able to muster the resources needed to compete with the kinds of entertainment that we are used to in our leisure time. Like, why would we want to listen to Father Relatable's sermon when we could just tune into our favorite podcast featuring our favorite contemporary intellectual? And why would we want to sit through Mrs. Piano Teacher and her husband, Mr. Tamborine's musical interludes when we could just watch our favorite musical artists on YouTube? And if entertainment is the priority, which these reforms seem to be telling us, then why would we pay any attention to a church which is only distracting us from the much better produced and polished forms of entertainment that we can easily access from home? In setting this precedent that the church should be more relevant, we discover that she isn't, and she never will be able to compete with what is relevant. And so all we end up accomplishing is taking a centuries-old culture and church that is quite admirable and respectable and contorting it into a third-rate counterfeit of popular culture. And the effect is that for those who want to be entertained, they will find that they are not being entertained. And since we've already signaled to them that they should expect to be entertained, they will feel far less regret for simply not showing up anymore. The second effect is that for those who don't want to be entertained on Sunday, people like myself, they will find the whole thing distracting, patronizing, and embarrassing to sit through. So to return to our original question about why traditional parishes are growing, and especially why younger generations seem to be attracted to them, I'd say the first obvious reason is because everything I've been describing is easy to reject. People who sincerely want to know and love God and grow in faith and wisdom do not want to be distracted by vain attempts to entertain them. And people who do want to be entertained don't want to wake up early on Sunday morning to listen to the musical repertoire of the local church folk band. So for people who are sincere in their attempts to know God, what will they do? They will turn to parishes that seem to take that challenge seriously. And that's what traditional parishes seem to do. If we look back at this spectrum of work and fun, it's obvious that fun is more appealing. But is fun what will truly produce holy men and women? Even if we succeeded in making the liturgy more fun, which I don't concede, should we really expect that the spectacle of entertainment is what will help people in their pursuit of sainthood? If someone makes a resolution to get in shape and start working out, they're going to look for a gym or a program that takes that challenge seriously. If there's a gym or a program out there that wants to emphasize fun at the expense of transformation, people like that will see it as a waste of time because they're serious about change. Liturgy, etymologically, literally means the work of the people, not the amusement of the people, not the entertainment of the people. Prayer is a work that we have to do. It's what we are called to do. And when we do it, we discover that we are transformed by it. And even if this isn't explicitly understood by people who want to take their faith seriously, I think that they instinctively understand it and they instinctively perceive it in traditional parishes. There are a million reasons why young people would want to avoid religion and religiosity. For one, it's eccentric, and it will force them to stand against the fashionable thoughts and currents of society, and they might face ridicule at work or at school. And a church that is preoccupied with relevancy won't alleviate any of those challenges for them. A person who can look at those prospects and push through anyways isn't someone who's going to be hung up on the need to be amused. And if we try to amuse them, they're just going to see that as pandering. What they want is authenticity. And if holding fast to the faith is hard work, then we shouldn't pretend otherwise. It's a high and noble thing that people can break out of this pattern of amusement to understand their desire for the higher and noble callings in life, especially in a modern world that is so relentless in its promotion of comfort and the appeasement of our base appetites. That is an opportunity for the church to be a unique voice crying out in the wilderness of the modern age, and that is the only kind of appeal that the church will ever have. And that is a strong appeal. And so it's no wonder that modern secular society wants the church to compete with it on its own playing field, the field of entertainment and amusements and delights. The modern world can't compete with it on the noble grounds of tradition, so it has to level the playing field. We shouldn't succumb to that temptation to be drawn into that field. The true church can't compete in a field of relevancy and entertainment, but where it can't be competed with is on a field of an experience of transcendence and of beauty, and that should be our focus. Hey, thanks for watching that. If you enjoyed it, then be sure to like and subscribe for more. And if you want to support the making of content like this, then please consider joining my online community, The Reinforcements. It's kind of like Patreon, but instead of being beholden to a big tech company, it's a website I built entirely myself, so there's no risk of us being censored or shut down or anything like that. There are hundreds of people who have already signed up, and our mission is to renew and reinforce the church. So if that's you, then come check it out. As an added bonus for certain tiers, I will also send you a gift box from Glory and Shine, which is a Catholic, family-owned and operated company. They make bath and body products. They're actually their beard balm I'm supporting, or I'm sporting right now. I'm not just a spokesperson, I'm actually a customer. So even if you don't join the Reinforcements, maybe check them out anyways. Glory and Shine, they're an amazing company.